Hi, I'm Dr. Fiona Tassoni, and my guest today is the beautiful Juanita Bennett from Melbourne. Juanita joined the Pregnancy Accelerator program for her second child, and Freddie was born in December of last year. So, welcome, Juanita. Thank you for joining me today to talk about your elective C-section.
Thank you for having me. So nice to see you.
I'm so excited because we did the prep before you had the elective C-section, and I just wanted to do a follow-up interview with you to get more insight, to empower women about their choices, to ask questions about, their decision to do that. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the experience and why you chose to have an elective C-section?
Yeah, and I'm so excited to be here to share this story with anyone who is watching this because if you've seen the previous video that we've done together, my daughter Charlotte, she was born via natural birth, so vaginal birth. For me, I actually always felt like I should have a cesarean. Something intuitively said to me, have a C, but I think because of society's negative kind of views of having a cesarean, I was really pushed towards having a natural birth. And so, as you would have heard in the previous video, my natural birth didn't really go to plan. Ended up being an induction. It was, force of delivery with a full episiotomy front to back. And so my recovery and the trauma that associated with that birth was just so huge. So I was really blessed to have an amazing obstetrician who I chose to have for the second birth. And we obviously discussed back and forth what I should do for the second birth. And we decided to go for an elective C. And I could not be happier that I chose that. I honestly almost am kicking myself that I didn't choose that for the first time. But if I didn't go through what I did the first time, I wouldn't be able to now have a perspective and be able to kind of share my journey with other people who might be considering having an elective C.
And it's wonderful to hear you talk like this because I have so many women that feel like they've failed in the birth process. And hearing you talk about this elective C-section as a wonderful experience, that you're able to bond with Freddie. It was, relatively pain-free. Was it pain-free for you? Was there any pain whatsoever?
Yeah. So, and I think as you just said, right, so it is that whole, I'm so happy that I did the elective C because for me, I'm such a planned person as well. So the fact that, I knew exactly when I was going in, I could be prepared because we had Charlotte at home. I could organize my mum to come and look after Charlotte while I was in hospital. I could also then plan for, we made sure that there was meals in the fridge. We made sure that there was that support when I got home. So there was a lot more things I could kind of put into place. And in terms of pain wise, not really. Well, yes, but no. So compared to and you have to understand that, for those of you who've never had a baby before, obviously you've got nothing to compare it to. For me, I went through a natural birth that was very traumatic and very painful. So for me to compare my elective C, it was nothing compared to my natural birth. So the process for me and the most painful thing was actually having the spinal block or the epidural. As I said to Fiona before, I don't actually know what I had, but for me, that was the most painful thing because I couldn't actually get it into my spine. So that was probably the most uncomfortable thing. But really, it was just like having an injection. But of course, it's in your spine. The funniest thing was then you have that, you lay down. And I remember being there with my pediatrician and going, okay, when are they going to start? Because you can feel them kind of touching your belly. And he's like, no, he's out. And I was like, what do you mean he's out? It is unbelievable how quick it happens. And they're just like, cut, boom, baby. It was incredible and such an amazing experience. I loved it in terms of the pain of the actual operation. You don't feel anything at all. It just feels like someone rummaging around in your handbag, if you could give like an analogy.
Yeah, right. Like the incision, is it quite small? Is it down near the pubis?
Yeah. So I've got my active wear on. I'm not obviously going to flash you, but it's just down here now and it's probably about that big.
Amazing. How has been the scar? Has it healed nicely? Have you had any keloid scarring?
Yeah,
What
so
you've done?
I made sure I had like a silicone patch on afterwards just to kind of make sure the healing was fine. I haven't been as good with massaging the area just because, of course, I've got Charlotte as well. So my mind isn't fully focused on me, but definitely, obviously, massaging that kind of, the scar definitely helps. But in terms of keloiding, nope, and it's healing really well. I had a little bit of numbness either side of the scar, which is to be expected. But I mean, we're 4 months postpartum now and the feeling's slowly coming back. But
So
totally fine.
can we rewind back to when you said he came out so quickly? So do you get skin to skin contact with him? Was that
Yeah.
allowed? I know some hospitals, they don't allow that.
Correct. So one of the things I really urge anyone watching this and choosing an elective C is make sure that you ask for the pediatrician to be on board with this. So we actually chose our pediatrician because he is very pro skin to skin. I wanted to have as much of a natural experience as possible. So we did, instead of delayed cord clamping, because they can't do that with a C, we did like, it was like imitating that. So they pushed the blood through and then Freddie was on me straight away. Like they checked him over very quickly. He was on me, covered in everything. He was kind of laying here and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like it was just such a different experience. Joe then went with Freddie and the pediatrician after a couple of minutes because it's very cold in a theatre room as well. So that's probably the difference with a normal delivery room in a theatre. It is cold in there. So they just said to me, look, are you happy for us to take him now to get checked over? So Joe went with him just to the table over there and that's where they did the measurements and checked everything over and everything was fine. We did have that conversation though, of course, if something was wrong, you can't have that skin to skin straight away. But the pediatrician said, if he's fine and he looks good, we'll get him on you straight away to have that contact.
That's brilliant. I'm so happy to hear that. Did you find that you were groggy after the anesthesia or did you want to have a sleep? How did you feel?
Yeah. I think I was just on such a high. I was fine. The only other thing as well, and I'll definitely encourage everyone again, to have a chat with your doctor and your pediatrician or your obstetrician, talk to them about what they're going to give you. So I was very much, I guess this time, second time round, I kind of knew what questions to ask. I wanted to know what I was having, what I was going to be given beforehand, what I was going to be given after. I probably asked way too many questions, but it's my right. I'm having this operation and I want to know. So little things, for instance, I spoke to the anaesthetist and asked about like antibiotics. What is the standard protocol? I personally chose to not have the antibiotics before the birth and they gave me a dose after. That was simply because I wanted to really help with Freddie's gut and didn't want to affect that. So even though that could potentially put me at a bit more of a risk, it was more safe for the baby's gut microbiome. So that was something I checked off. I didn't feel groggy after, but then in terms of medication, I don't tolerate endone very well. So we had that discussion as to what I was going to be given for pain relief after. And so they gave me a mix of fentanyl and also tramadol instead. So I was still obviously out of it from the medication, but I wasn't out of it like I've heard of some other people when they're given other things that they don't know they're having as well.
That's great that you were able to remain lucid during that experience because I know some women lose that. Did you have any problems breastfeeding? I know a lot of women do complain that there are some bonding issues post a C-section. How was your experience with that?
Yeah, so same thing. I would think I was really lucky. And again, I don't know whether it was because it's the second time around as well, but Freddie was great. He latched on straight away. I think I first fed when I was back in the delivery room. And again, I kind of didn't want to have too much medication, but obviously you had to have a little bit, but definitely latching on was so much better this time. And also the pain of breastfeeding. So with Charlotte, I was in quite a lot of pain. Again, I don't know whether that's because I was a first time mum and didn't really know what to do. Whereas this time around, you're just like, get on, you just know how to kind of put them on and you're a bit more confident with how to latch and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, breastfeeding straight away, no problems at all. And he was gaining weight like a little champ.
Now, I know we spoke about it in our first interview about the belly bands and all the strategies that you had in place. Can you maybe explain to the women that are going in for this elective C-section, the things that you took in pre and post surgery to help you recover?
Of course. So I took in actually two types of belly band and I found one to be kind of more comfortable. It was the one that I think it was just called the belly band, and it was more like a material as opposed to like bits of Velcro. The hospital actually provided me with like a stretchy piece of elastic as well. That was really great, especially having a C-section. It is, you need that support of some kind, because you just feel like, you know, it's just a bit floppy and loose and it's not supported. So definitely take in some kind of support if your hospital doesn't provide that. And I would definitely ask, is that something that your hospital provides or not? Because in the end, I actually just used the one that the hospital gave me more so, because it was like that stretchy piece of elastic and I could use it all the time breastfeeding and not. I guess some of the other things as well. So because I chose to have the antibiotics post-birth, I also made sure I was taking like an essential oil supplement as well, which essentially is like an antibiotic, but it doesn't affect the microflora of the baby or myself as well. So just supporting myself with a bunch of natural things to essentially have that better kind of aftermath, and also supplements and stuff, which I think we're going to talk about shortly anyway.
Yeah, we are, absolutely. We want to talk about the supplements that you were using. I know like a good probiotic is very good for the breast milk, and you can even microdose that into breast milk, into things that you've given Freddie. Do you want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so obviously through your guidance, which has just been absolutely amazing through the program, having that kind of pre and probiotics. So I was taking that beforehand, also taking it after, and then just getting the capsule and just popping some into my breast milk and syringing that into his mouth for the first couple of weeks. I found so important, again, just because of that microflora and the studies around cesareans and potentially being a bit of an upset with that gut health. So I really wanted to make that paramount. Obviously taking, you know, my, so I've got my little sups here. So my little On Guard doTERRA tablets I was taking before and after. I had some stronger ones on hand in case I felt like I had any infection happening, but I didn't have that happen at all. I also was taking, so these bad boys, the Metagenics vitamin D. So I really believe that that played a massive part in my postpartum recovery. I didn't take this with Charlotte, and I was on quite high doses before and after. And I also believe that that plays a massive part in me not having any of the postpartum depression I had with Charlotte. And then I also took the Thorn prenatal as well. Sorry, I've got my little sups here. It's the way I remember it. And then I'm such a visual person. So
That's brilliant. Such a perfect payment. You know, and I think women like to see the visual, because these are the supplements that we do prescribe in the Pregnancy Accelerator program. So you are so good at dosing your vitamin D and doing all the right things and asking all the right questions. Were there things nutritionally that you did in your recovery? I know that you are vegan, so were you having vegetable broths and slow cooked things? Can you explain what you ate in your recovery?
100%. And one thing I'll say is that whether you go obviously public or private, yes, the food is free in hospital, but it doesn't mean that you have to eat it. And it doesn't mean that that's the only thing you have to have. So I think, you know, people might think I'm a bit weird, but I took in my NutriBullet. I took in my greens. I made smoothies. Well, Joe made me smoothies every day. I was really, really on top of my nutrition in the hospital. So one of the things as well, whether you have a natural birth or a C-section, please make sure that you are taking some kind of fiber when you are in there. So I literally took like my fiber with me. I was adding my fiber into my smoothies. So in the hospital, making sure that I had really good nutrition, not just hospital food, which for a vegan is pretty bad. And then when I got home, I was very much about making sure that I was having all good nourishing things. So like, you know, your ginger and, you know, garlic, and making sure that anything I had was like organic and really kind of serving me. So yes, I'd have, you know, bits and pieces of junk food, but I really wanted to make sure that whatever I was eating was going to be really supportive of my healing process and of my recovery.
And how were those first 40 days? In Chinese medicine, those first 40 days are really crucial for bonding, finding a new routine. How was Charlotte in that new routine? Did she find any objections or supportive? Did she have any tantrums? What was her experience?
Yeah. So when we first brought Freddie home, just the bonding, I was a bit nervous about how it was going to go, but she just loved him. I was a mess because I was like full of hormones. So I was just like bawling my eyes out with pure happiness. I guess that was something, the recovery was something that I really wanted to make sure went well. And that's something that, again, everyone listening, make sure that you plan for the worst and then you'll have the best recovery. So I guess, because everyone had spoken about, C-sections being this awful thing and, blah, 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 blah. So I was expecting like I was going to be this, bedridden vegetable that wasn't going to be able to move for like months. So I prepared for the worst. I was, chanting and doing all of the, expecting better, but I wanted to also prepare so that I wasn't taken by shock. So I made sure obviously Joe was on board. He took time off. His work were amazing in terms of supplying food for us so that we could really just bond with Freddie and have that connection. We really made sure that Charlotte still felt a part of everything. We actually got Charlotte a present from Freddie just to kind of create that really nice bonding with them together. And I also, because I knew I wanted to co-sleep, we had like a co-sleep, like a nest that you could actually put against the bed. Just in the first early days, I thought in case I'm too drugged out on medication, I wanted to make sure that I could safely co-sleep with Freddie, not in the bed with me, but that he was right there. And it is something that I highly recommend, because especially when you have a C-section, the hardest part is obviously, this motion. So getting up out of bed, going to feed, getting up, you kind of have to roll to the side and do a lot of stuff. So if your baby is just there, you can easily just slide them across, feed while you're lying down, and pop them across, And of course, because I ended up not being on a lot of medication when I got home,